Shocking truth, the American sleep experiment you never knew about at 3 a.m. unleashing terror. In the dead of night, a strange phenomenon begins to unfold. The clock strikes 3 a.m., a witching hour that seems to awaken something sinister. Shadows deepen, and the air thickens, a heavy blanket of unease draping over every sleeper. This isn't just any hour, it's when the true horror reveals itself. Throughout each American town, whispers travel like wildfire, an experiment, hidden from the masses, that tests the limits of human endurance and sanity. People claim they've seen the unthinkable, eyes wide open, staring into nothing, bodies frozen in fear. Imagine looking at a friend only to witness their expression twist from tranquility to terror right before your eyes. Those who've experienced it speak of a voice in their heads, begging them to wake up, to run, to escape. Some say it's merely a dream, a lie spun by fear. But what if it's something darker? What if it's the government manipulating our deepest vulnerabilities? Then there are the strange lights that flicker in the night sky, drawing curious glances just before the local news drips with reports of missing persons. The townsfolk gather, their eyes glistening with dread as they share stories back and forth, each one more disturbing than the last. The room is charged with anticipation, secrets bubbling under the surface. Is it just the weight of a common imagination, or is there a force out there, lurking, waiting? Suddenly, the old radio crackles to life, a broken melody fills the silence, almost like a siren's call, a warning or an invitation. Who could tell? This isn't just noise, it feels alive, as if it's enticing you to join the madness. Tension mounts, hearts pound fiercely in chests, and dread seeps, cold and unforgiving. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. And just when you think the night couldn't get any weirder, a piercing scream cuts through the darkness, snapping them from their fearful reverie. The group freezes, expressions morphing from curiosity to sheer horror. Who or what could be out there? They exchange anxious glances, a pact of unspoken fear binding them together. Will they uncover the truth behind the sinister sleep experiment, or will they succumb to the unnerving uncertainty lurking just outside their doors? The scream echoed off the walls of the dimly lit room, reverberating through each heart. It was raw, filled with terror, a sound that suggested the unimaginable. The friends huddled close together, breaths shallow, eyes darting to the windows and the darkened corners of the room. What had just happened? Who had screamed? Did you hear that? Whispered Sarah, her voice trembling as she gripped the arm of her friend Matt, knuckles white against his plaid shirt. Maybe it was just an animal, he stammered, but even he didn't believe it. The faces surrounding him reflected a mirror of fear, disbelief mixed with dread. As if on cue, the radio crackled again, the distorted melody twisting into an unspeakable wail. It sounded almost human but strained, like a desperate plea for help. Laura's gaze met Jake's, and for a moment, all they could do was stare. They could sense it, the knot tightening in their chests, that tightening fear, pulsing like a drum in the suffocating silence. Okay, let us go check it out, Jake's voice boomed suddenly, breaking the tension. It was a show of courage, but deep down, doubt gnawed at him. Was he really ready to face whatever lurked outside? You can't be serious, Sarah protested, almost pleading. What if it's a person out there? Something worse? But Jake waved her off, determination hardening his features. We can't just sit here. We need to know. One by one, the group found themselves inching toward the door. They stepped onto the cold wooden floor, and with each creak, their hearts pounded harder. The faintest light flickered at the window, a glow that pulsed like the very breath of the night. Outside, the air was heavy, charged with uncertainty. Mist hung low, curling around their ankles as they peered into the blackness. The screams faded, replaced by an unsettling stillness that felt almost mocking. Where are the lights coming from? Matt asked, squinting into the abyss. What if we just went back inside? Sarah's voice was barely a whisper now, the weight of the moment pressing down like a suffocating blanket. But they were already drawn towards the source, something compelling them forward. Then, without warning, a figure emerged from the fog, a silhouette barely discernible. A dark shape stumbled towards them. As it drew closer, a chill shot down Laura's spine. The light from the house illuminated a face twisted in fear, eyes bulging, green with raw panic. "Run!" the figure screamed, voice cracking as they fell to their knees, hands clutching at the ground as though it were slipping away. "Get back!" Jake shouted, instinctively putting himself in front of the others. The warning hung in the air, clashing against the freezing wind. Who was this person? What could they possibly know? And then, in an instant, the lights in the sky flared brighter, illuminating the night like a daytime horror. The radio's tune morphed into something horrific: screams, laughter, and chaos. A wave of dread washed over them as they realized they weren't just observers anymore. They were part of this sinister experiment. "Let us move," Matt urged, but it was too late. The figure gasped for breath, pointing up at the sky. "Don't look away. It'll take you." Just as terror gripped their hearts, a flash swept across the horizon, and time felt suspended. Everything spun wildly. What would they discover in the seconds that followed? Would they escape the grasp of this nightmarish reality, or be forever entangled in its web? As the shadows loomed closer, a haunting realization sank in. This night was only the beginning. The world around them seemed to hold its breath, as if time itself was caught in a web of darkness. Jake's heart raced. Every instinct screamed for him to flee. But the voice of the figure, trembling on the ground, pierced through the haze, pulling him closer like a moth to a flame. "What does it mean?" Laura breathed, her eyes wide, reflecting the surreal brilliance above. The figure struggled to rise, each muscle quaking under the weight of terror. "They're coming, you can't let it see you. It feeds on fear." "Fear?" The knot in Jake's chest tightened further. He exchanged glances with Sarah, whose face was pale as chalk. This was beyond anything they had ever prepared for, yet here they stood, caught in the grip of horror. "Just tell us who you are," he demanded, the words escaping in a burst of frustration. "I'm," the figure stammered, but before they could finish, a low growl emanated from the forest surrounding them, echoing like a beast awakened. Leaves rustled, and from the shadows, silhouettes began to seep into the light cast by their home. "What the hell is that?" Matt said, stepping back, his voice sharp with panic. The others stumbled, hearts drumming in their ears. As the shapes drew closer, Jake caught a glimpse of glinting eyes, empty and predatory. Instinctively, he grabbed Laura's wrist, pulling her back toward the door. He could feel a surge of protective energy course through him. "We need to go inside. Now." But Sarah shook her head, determination flooding her voice. "We can't. If we go in, we might lock ourselves in with whatever is in there." A flash of realization shot through Jake. The creature might already be inside. The door felt like a trap now, a potentially deadly cage. "We have to stick together," he said firmly, then pulled everyone closer. The wind howled, threatening to sweep them away, but they held on, forming a circle for whatever lay ahead. "Look!" Laura pointed. "There's something in the air, something swirling. It's like smoke, but alive." The dark tendrils twisted above them, reaching down, as if searching. Each strand of mist coiled around their bodies, dragging through their thoughts, playing with their worst fears. Jake felt it, a surge of vulnerability, a flicker of doubt. Would they really survive? "Don't let it in," the figure rasped, struggling to rise. "Keep your minds clear. That's how it feeds." Jake felt sweat trickle down his back. "What do you mean feeds? What does it want from us?" But before the figure could answer, the tendrils lunged, and Sarah shrieked, stumbling backwards as one snaked around her ankle, pulling her toward the darkness. "Help!" she gasped, fear clawing at her voice. Jake lunged, grabbing her hand. He pulled with all his strength, but the more he tugged, the stronger the grip became. It felt like an invisible force pulling around her, tightening with a relentless pressure. "Hold on!" he shouted, anxiety surging through him. Everyone around them was frozen, eyes wide, faces pale as they watched the terror unfold. "Let her go!" Matt yelled, desperation rising in his tone. "We can't lose anyone else." And then, just like that, the grasp released. Sarah collapsed forward into Jake's arms, gasping for breath. The figure, battered and shaking, looked up, eyes wide with horror. "It knows your weakness," they shouted. "Don't show fear. Fight back." Each pulse of sound from the radio twisted, rendering a malevolent soundtrack that drummed into their nerves. In that moment, everyone knew it wasn't just survival. It was a head-on collision with the darkest parts of their souls. Jake felt the heaviness of the air as it thickened with intentions far worse than they understood. Around them, shadows shifted and swirled, ready for the next strike. "Together. We need to stand together," he declared, willing everyone to hold on to hope, despite the gnawing dread inside him. But one question lingered in the silence, thick as fog: what horrific truth lay hidden in the depths of the night, waiting to be unleashed? And as the dark figures closed in, Jake realized they weren't just fighting to survive, they were racing against time itself, standing on the precipice of an unthinkable reality. The air crackled with tension as Jake tightened his grip on Sarah, the shadows encroaching around them thickening, swirling like a dark storm. Each breath felt heavy, saturated with unspoken fears. His pulse raced, the rhythm of fear syncing with the chaotic environment. Laura clutched Matt's arm, her eyes darting between Jake and the ominous figures advancing from the depths of the forest. "What do we do?" Matt whispered, his voice trembling as he surveyed their surroundings. "We can't just stand here. Keep your minds clear." The figure on the ground rasped again, desperately clawing at the dirt as if searching for refuge. "They feed off chaos. Don't let them see your fear." The shadows stopped, hovering just beyond the radius of their dim light. Jake could feel the weight of countless eyes boring into them. The tendrils in the air pulsed, a living entity itching to invade their psyches. He could almost hear them whispering in a cacophony of doubts, each word threatening to tear at his resolve. "I'm not afraid," Jake shouted, forcing power into his voice, though the quiver of uncertainty rang true within him. He glanced at Sarah, whose face was flushed, eyes wild with panic. She looked like she needed reassurance, yet he felt far from confident himself. "Remember when we went camping?" he muttered to her, the memory fumbling at the edges of his mind. "When we faced the storm together? We survived that. We can handle this." To his surprise, a flicker of strength crossed her face. "You're right," she breathed, drawing a shaky breath. "We can do this. We have each other." Matt nodded, slowly regaining some composure. "Right. Together. Just like before." But as they joined hands, injecting their circle with a thrust of renewed spirit, the shadows shrieked, an unsettling sound tearing through the night like a sharp knife. They lunged forward, a mass of dark limbs and eyes ready to pounce. "Don't let go!" Jake shouted as he felt the energy of Sarah's hand firmly in his, the warmth grounding him against the ice-cold grip of dread surrounding them. They stood firm, a line of defiance against the shadows. The figure on the floor motioned urgently. "You have to confront it. Face your fears. It won't stop until it breaks you." Jake's heart skidded as the shadows slithered closer, but with that fear, an idea sparked. What if it feeds on our terror but can't withstand our strength? He could feel the thrum of their collective resolve, igniting a flicker of hope. If we push back our fears, maybe we can weaken it. "Fight!" Laura yelled, raising her chin defiantly. "We won't let it take any of us." The conviction in her voice surged through the group like a wildfire, igniting courage where once there was only trepidation. They closed their eyes, taking a deep breath together, pooling their fears into a single point of energy. Jake could feel the shadows writhe, howling in frustration as they rallied their intangible strength against the impending onslaught. What began as dread transformed into something else, a defiant blaze of power bolstered by the vibrations of their steadfast unity. They faced the oncoming darkness, fear morphing into clarity. "I refuse to fear you," Jake bellowed, the sound surging from inside him, almost as if the night itself recoiled from his words. "You don't own us." At that moment, the shadows jerked, freezing in place. The tendrils quivered as though caught in a sudden gust of wind, flickering like a dying candle. Jake could feel the pulse of their combined strength driving back against the swarm. But then, through the abyss, an unnerving laugh echoed harsh, mocking. The figures deepened, towering over them, their forms shifting with grotesque shapes. "Do you think you can resist?" A voice slithered from the darkness, cruel and sly. "Your fears will always hunt you down." Behind the mocking laughter, a blinding flash erupted, blotting out everything for a split second. When their vision cleared, something was different. The shadows had retreated, but a tangible weight pressed against Jake's chest. "What did we just do?" Sarah's voice trembled. As the atmosphere shifted around them, charged with more than just fear, they stood on the precipice of a revelation, yet Jake sensed the deepening darkness around them still lingering, watching, waiting. And in their hearts, a singular question throbbed: what did that mocking voice mean, and how would they confront the truth that lay just ahead? The world around them felt heavier now, the air thick with an invisible weight, as if the shadows had sunk deeper beneath their skin. Jake stood there, heart racing, trying to process what had just happened. He could see the fear reflected in Sarah's eyes, and it gnawed at him. "What was that?" Matt echoed, his voice a mere whisper, mismatched with the growing cacophony of the night. The silence that followed felt like it was crushing him, each second stretched taut as though waiting for something to snap. Jake felt the pulse of their collective energy beginning to dissipate. "I don't know, but we can't let our guard down," he urged, forcing bravado into his words. "We need to stay focused." The dark figures retreated, fading from view, but Jake could still feel them pressing against the edges of his mind, a constant reminder of their presence. The weight in his chest grew heavier. It was a chill that seeped into his bones, whispering doubts and feeding on his resolve that a sudden gust of wind rustled the leaves above, sparking a flurry of whispers among the trees. Laura, eyes wide with apprehension, broke the tense silence. "What if we just made it worse? What if they come back stronger?" "No!" Jake snapped, stubbornly shaking his head. "We pushed them back. We did something. We confronted them together." But deep down, he could feel the tremors of uncertainty rumbling in his stomach. As if sensing their turmoil, the shadows flickered back to life, writhing just out of sight, morphing into grips of terror reaching for them once more. The mocking voice echoed again, this time laced with a menacing undercurrent. "What you faced was but a whisper of your true selves. Will you spare me the confrontation or let your truths unravel?" Jake's breath caught. What did it mean, letting their truths unravel? He glanced at the others, his friends, their faces twisted in confusion. There was a deep-seated fear, a fear that not only lived outside but inside each of them. "Could it be?" Sarah began, dread creeping into her tone. "What if our fears aren't just manifestations? What if they're reflections of who we really are?" The shadows surged again, echoing with delight. "Ah, the girl speaks wisdom. Embrace your truths, children. The fear, the shame, every dark thought has a place in your hearts. What will you uncover?" Jake struggled to find his voice. "We're not afraid of the truth," he stammered, but with every word, doubt echoed louder. Would facing their inner struggles just empower the darkness? "All fear is a prison," the figure on the ground croaked, its eyes wide and pleading in the darkness, "but only if you let it bind you." "Can we face that?" Matt looked at them, desperation etched across his features. "What if revealing our truths tears us apart?" "I can't let that happen," Jake said firmly, voice steadier now, fueled by the connection among them. "We have to take control. It's the only way forward." The shadows erupted in laughter, swirling like a raging storm. "How brave you are!" The voice rejoiced, but beneath the mockery lay a chill. "Remember, revealing who you are means standing naked before your fears and the secrets you guard most fiercely." And with those words, the swirling darkness began to coalesce, shapes shifting into grotesque forms cast from their deepest insecurities. A slithering figure emerged, its face contorted a mirror mocking every regret and failure Jake had ever known. "Face me," it hissed, "for I am your truth." Ice ran through Jake's veins as a wave of dread crashed over him. He felt the weight of expectations, of dreams crushed under the weight of real-life choices. Tears prickled at the corners of his eyes as the realization struck him. These shadows held pieces of his very soul. He gripped Sarah's hand tighter, refusing to look away. "We can do this, together," Jake said, forcing strength into his voice despite the trembling fear within. Just then, a flicker of light broke through the darkness. It illuminated something ahead, a figure standing, waiting. A spark ignited something within him. "Hope? Who is that?" Sarah's voice trailed off. Uncertainty giving way to curiosity. The shadows paused, seemingly unnerved. "You wish to know the truth?" The mocking voice rumbled, angering at this intrusion. "Yes," Laura shouted. "Show us." And as they braced for what lay ahead, Jake felt a chilling question haunt him. Was this new figure a savior, or another trick of the dark? What truth would unravel in the confrontation that was about to begin? The figure stepped forward, its outlines shimmering with an ethereal glow that seemed to push back against the oppressive darkness. It wore a cloak of silver mist, the fabric flowing like water, reflecting fragments of light that momentarily banished the shadows surrounding them. Jake squinted, trying to discern any familiar features, his heart hammering in his chest. "Who are you?" he called out, his voice shaky yet defiant, uncertainty gnawing at his resolve. "I am the keeper of your truths," the voice echoed softly, a blend of warmth and danger. "I am the light revealing the darkness within." The figure raised a hand, which glowed brighter, illuminating the grotesque forms that were solidifying around them. The shadows began to writhe in discomfort, retreating slightly as the light pushed into them. "Enough games!" Matt shouted suddenly, frustration boiling over. "You think we can't see what you really are? Show us the truth, or take your light back." Jake shot him a warning glance. The tension was palpable. They were walking a razor's edge. The figure didn't flinch. Instead, it regarded Matt with an almost sad smile. "Very well," it said, lowering its hand. "But remember, the truth can lead you to dark places and brighter ones. Are you ready to face the parts of yourselves you fear most?" With that, the shadows screeched, their cries bone-chilling, as if protesting the light that threatened to expose them. It was an army of their own making, each haunting visage carving itself from the very essence of their insecurities. They shifted closer to Jake and the others, each ghastly face a reminder of their deepest failures and fears. "Jake," Sarah whispered, her eyes wide with disbelief as she pointed. "Look at that one. It's your fear of failing." The grotesque figure bore a look of disappointment, its features a twisted reflection of his own. Jake's breath hitched. How could it know? He gulped, remembering every time he'd let himself down, every time he felt he didn't measure up. The figure in the mist stepped to Jake's side. "Embrace it, but do not let it consume you," it said, its tone soothing. "Every fear has a value. It shows where you have to grow." "That's easy for you to say." Matt snapped back, pointing accusingly at the shadow that loomed over him, its haunting eyes filled with regret. "You don't know what it's like to be crushed under the weight of expectation." "Maybe you're right," it replied, compassion laced in its voice. "But understand this, the chains that bind you are self-imposed. Only by revealing your truths can you break free." Suddenly, the shadows lunged, compelled by an unseen force. They twisted and writhed, merging back together in a surge of darkness. The mocking laugh reverberated through the air. "Will you surrender to the easier path of denial? The light shows what you fear, but the shadows are where you truly live." Jake felt a surge of desperation, tapping into the fragile connections they had forged. "No! We will not let you take hold!" he shouted, an unexpected fire igniting within him. "We may be afraid, but we're stronger together. We'll face you." The shadows halted, uncertainty rippling through them. "Face us?" the voice questioned with mock surprise. Very well, brave children. Show us the light. You may find it is but a flicker amidst the dark. With that, the figure in the mist stepped closer, beckoning them. Focus. Hold on tightly to one another, and reveal your truths. As they joined hands, a wave of warmth surged through Jake. He closed his eyes, and fear mingled with hope. Would this moment mark their freedom? But still, doubt loomed like a storm cloud. Would they truly find the strength to confront their most hidden fears? And just as Jake steadied himself, a piercing scream shattered the night, a sound all too familiar, echoing from the depths of their inner turmoil. The shadows paused, and then one by one began to morph into something darker, something triggered by that agonizing wail. What had they unleashed? The ground trembled beneath their feet, shaking the very air that was thick with dread. Jake and the others instinctively tightened their grip, hearts pounding as the shadows contorted into nightmarish shapes. The piercing screams seemed to echo from the depths of their own fears, casting a spell of panic over them. Jake! Sarah cried out, her voice quivering. What do we do? They're getting stronger. The figure in the mist glided closer, its glow flickering with the shadow's movements. Its expression had shifted, now imbued with a fierce intensity. You must confront the truth behind the scream. It is the heart of your fear, and only by facing it can you find the strength to break free. Confront it? Matt echoed breathlessly, his eyes wide with fear. What if it's too much? It's already inside you. The figure responded, its voice rising above the chaos. You've let it fester. Now release it. With those words, the shadows shrieked louder, volumes of anguish rising from their twisted forms. As the cacophony enveloped them, a deep, guttural whisper began to weave through the air. A torrent of memories surged through Jake's mind, each darker than the last. He saw himself failing his family, letting friends down, and the relentless grip of judgment closing in. It intensified with each beat of his heart. Dig deeper, Jake, urged the figure, its voice substantial against the gloom. But his heart raced, fear suffocating him. What if it consumes us? Then you shall become stronger, transformed, the figure declared, resonating with an energy that crackled with possibilities. Amidst this, one shadow began to take form, looming larger than the rest. This one mirrored Jake most painfully, its eyes dark hollows filled with despair. Its skin seemed to shift like smoke, swirling, revealing glimpses of the times he stood on the brink of failure. Face it, the figure commanded. Jake, you have to do this, Sarah shouted, urgency creeping into her tone. You can't let it win. Taking a shuddering breath, he forced his eyes to meet the shadow's gaze. Why do you haunt me? The words spilled out, raw and trembling. You ignored me, the shadow replied in a voice that resonated from deep within. You turned away from me, pretending I didn't exist. But now, you cannot escape. The atmosphere shifted. A heaviness fell upon him like a winter coat. Jake felt the sob and choke of fear building in his chest. The enormity of the moment pressed down harder than gravity. But in it all, flickers of warmth surged in his chest, memories of laughter, friendship, and resilience. I have failed, yes. But I am not defined by my failures, he shouted, mustering every ounce of strength. I am more than my fears. The figures trembled, the air thick with tension as the shadows recoiled, their forms vibrating with uncertainty. The figure in the mist smiled, a glimmer of hope igniting the space around them. Now, together with honesty as your light pushed back. The surge of unity ignited in them, a wild pulse of warmth exchanging between their grips. Jake could feel Sarah's hope, Matt's desperate courage, and even their buried sorrows shifting within them. They were more than shadows, they were a coalition of transformation. But just as they felt the dynamic shift, another scream erupted, this one raw and primal. It wasn't just their fears anymore. It was a collective despair that amplified tenfold. What is happening? Jake screamed, confusion clawing at him as shadows reformed, twisting into a more concentrated mass of terror. The figure in the mist faltered for a brief moment, and then shouted, "This is only the beginning. You must stand strong, for there are depths yet unrevealed." The darkness surged forward, thick and suffocating, ready to swallow them whole. Would their collective strength be enough, or was another horror awaiting them just out of sight? Jake steeled himself, gripping tightly to his friends. The lights flickered, and the shadows danced closer. What lay hidden in the depths would come for them next. The ground twisted beneath them, the tremors a physical manifestation of their racing hearts. Shadows swirled into a churning vortex, a demonic cyclone drawing closer. Jake felt panic clawing at his throat. What's next? Matt whimpered, his eyes darting frantically around. What do we do now? Hold on! Jake shouted, squeezing Sarah's hand tighter as she shivered beside him. Their unity felt like a fragile flame in the consuming darkness. The figure in the mist, still radiating an eerie glow, stood firm against the shadows. Fear feeds on despair, it warned. You must confront it head on. Only together can you illuminate the void. Jake steeled himself. He remembered the warmth of their shared laughter, the moments where hope flickered like candlelight even against the darkest nights. Was this not enough to battle these demons? Time to find out. Kneel! He commanded, surprising himself with the fierce authority in his voice. Let us face this together. With hesitant obedience, they dropped to their knees. As they did, the shadows shrieked in protest, their twisted forms writhing as if the mere act of submission weakened them. The horrific shadow of Jake loomed overhead, its eyes glinting with malice. You think you can overcome me? It hissed, the sound like nails scraping against metal. Not me, Jake shot back, but us. We face you together. You're just a memory, nothing more. With those words, the air crackled. Jake saw it an opening, a fissure in the shadow's facade. We are not alone in this, he declared, raising his voice against the enveloping darkness. Sarah, Matt, together. Sarah's eyes glimmered with fierce determination. You don't define Jake, not anymore, she declared, her voice stronger than ever. None of us are defined by our fears or failures. The shadows recoiled, their forms flickering as the air thickened with charged energy. Jake could feel the dread in his chest lessen, replaced by a swelling strength. Together! They shouted, their voices intertwining in a heartbeat of defiance. Suddenly, the shadows screamed and twisted violently as if caught in a gale force, swirling chaotically. Dark shapes began to peel away, unraveling the nightmarish visage of Jake's shadow. At the center, a whisper of light flickered, yearning for a chance to fill the growing void. But then, amidst this momentum, a chilling realization struck Jake. The ground beneath them was cracking, fissures splitting like a throat torn open. It felt as though the boundaries between their world and the abyss were colliding. What would come next? Jake. Matt's voice was almost swallowed by a gust of wind. What if we can't hold it back? We can't stop now, Jake shouted. Trust in each other. Focus on the light, the hope. As they focused collectively on their bond, the encroaching shadows shuddered but hungered for revenge. Forms began to erupt from the darkness, twisted figures born from their collective despair. A new scream tore through the air, one that felt deeply personal, and it echoed through the group. Jake felt the icy grip of hopelessness creeping back in, threading its way through this moment of strength. Jake, don't look back, Sarah urged, her face a mask of fear and determination. Keep pushing. All at once, the figures lunged forward, filling the void with dark intent. Jake's heart raced as the bittersweet sting of failure whispered dangerously close. What if their unity couldn't withstand the fury of the shadows? What if the light they conjured wasn't enough? The shadows drew near, hunger for despair palpable in the air. A fierce war raged within him. Could they truly push through, or was the truth behind that chilling scream destined to claw them back into the darkness? Darkness threatened to engulf them. All at once, they had to choose, face the void or succumb to it. In that heartbeat of hesitation, the air cracked loud with power. A revelation pierced through the chaos, crashing like a thunderclap. What if the scream held the answer to their fears and their escape? The shadows rushed towards them. What would they decide to unveil in that moment? Of terror? The air was electric, charged with the weight of their decision. Jake's pulse hammered in his ears, deafening and urgent. The twisted figures lunged, the shadows reaching for their flesh in a clamoring frenzy as if they could taste their fear. For a split second, Jake hesitated, uncertainty clawing at him like icy fingers. "Find the light!" he shouted, desperation mingling with defiance. "Focus on the scream. There's truth in it." Matt's voice trembled. "What if it's just another trap? Then we'll face it together, just like we always plan." Jake's words cut through the doubt like a knife, igniting a fire in their hearts. In unison, they turned toward the scream. The sound morphed into a piercing wail, rising above the chaos, and a flicker of light shimmered at its core. It pulsed rhythmically, an echo of their collective heartbeat. Shadows shrieked and twisted, their forms blurring in confusion as though the light was unraveling their very essence. "Keep pushing! Keep believing!" Sarah cried, her voice steady, providing the glue to hold them all together. With each syllable, their bond amplified, building momentum. The flickering light grew brighter, revealing the truth hidden within the darkness. Jake closed his eyes, focusing on the warmth of Sarah's hand in his. It steadied him, reminded him they weren't just three friends lost in a nightmare. They were a force that couldn't be broken. Jake took a deep breath and opened his eyes. There, through the swirling chaos, he saw flashes of memories. Laughter, triumphs, moments of vulnerability shared between them. They weren't echoes of their past, these were sources of power. The fear and shadows spiraled around them, trying to drown them out, but they pushed harder, voices melded into one. Suddenly, the shadows recoiled as the light expanded, shimmering like an ocean of hope. In that shining moment, Jake glimpsed a visage, an image of himself, but not alone. He was surrounded by friends, loved ones, a community. "We are more than our fears," he bellowed, conviction freaking each word, pushing against the encroaching void. With that proclamation, the light blazed furiously, rays slicing through the darkness. The shadows shrieked, disintegration echoing around them as it began to fracture, dark shapes breaking off into nothingness. Each scream seemed almost to thrum with a life of its own, easing the grip of despair choking their throats. "Together, we break these chains!" Matt yelled, allowing the power of their unity to surge through him. But the shadows fought back, reaching, writhing, desperate to pull them apart. The air thickened and a sinister laughter rang out, slicing through the light. "You think unity can save you?" it taunted, the voice slithering around their resolve. "You're still trapped in my web." The very ground beneath them groaned and buckled, the rift spreading wider. Jake felt the pull of the abyss grasping at his ankles, pulling him downward even as they rose in strength. Behind those twisted faces, doubt wormed its way back in. What if it wasn't enough? "We can do this." Sarah's eyes sparkled with unwavering faith. "Think of everything we've overcome." Jake knew they had come far. But as shadows dove closer, he wondered if their truth could truly outshine the dark. "Now!" he screamed, feeling the last reserve of energy build inside him like a live wire. "We face it together." With a final push, the light burst forth, expanding into the darkness in one blinding surge. Shadows recoiled and screamed, a cacophony of terror echoing in the air, but there was no turning back. In that victorious moment, just as hope surged, Jake caught a glint, a shimmering figure rising among them, undulating like a dark wave. It was familiar yet foreign, an embodiment of everything they feared. The scream intensified, resonating with chaos. What was this new horror? As the light flickered uncertainly, a chilling thought crept into Jake's mind. Could the figure be a harbinger of their greatest fears yet to come? They had battled the darkness, but was the real threat only now revealing itself? As the blinding light engulfed them, the shadows writhed like a wounded beast, desperately trying to claw their way back into existence. The ground trembled, fissures gaping, threatening to swallow them whole. Jake felt the heat of fear sizzling in his veins, yet the warmth of Sarah's hand was an anchor, grounding him amid the chaos. When the brilliance surged brighter, he instinctively drew the group closer, their breaths sinking in a collective heartbeat. With a thunderous roar, the shadows convulsed violently, silhouettes clawing at the light with frenzied desperation. But Jake's resolve solidified, the fierce reminder of their friendship igniting a fire inside him. "We are stronger together," He cried out, his voice cutting through the unsettling noise, a clarion call against despair. The figure formed in the depth, flickering, its malevolence palpable. "You dare challenge me?" it hissed, slithering forward, an amalgam of regrets and fears given flesh. This shadow bore the face of all they had dreaded. It turned fears into an unfeeling mirror, reflecting their insecurities, weaving a sickened fabric of doubt. Jake recognized the ruinous visions, his failures, the moments each one had fallen short with criticism swimming in their eyes. But he wouldn't back down. "You don't own us!" he shouted through gritted teeth, fury braiding through the seams of his voice. "We face you, not run. Embrace your darkest thoughts." The figure shrieked, its arms outstretched, darkness threatening to envelop them all. "Together!" Sarah echoed, strength rising in her voice as fear metamorphosed into defiance. "We can do this!" The cruel laughter met them like biting wind. It surged, swirling wildly but pinching tighter around their throats. In a moment of billion realities crushing down, sweat dripped from Jake's brow as he felt a chill snake around him. "Show me your truth!" the dark figure called, hunger shimmering in its eyes. The darkness screamed, "What is your essence?" A maelstrom of dread exploded. Suddenly, every fear they bore converged around them, chaotic yet familiar. Matt's voice pierced through the fog. "What if we fail again?" But Jake caught the flicker of resolve in Sarah's eyes. "No more running! People don't get broken unless they choose to shatter." In the shared experiences that tied them together, friendship echoing the previous trials, progress made and struggles faced, their mutual strength grew. Light roared within Jake. It burned fiercely, pushing against the shadows. "I am afraid, yes," he yelled, resources flooding in, amplifying the very essence of their collective spirit. "But we choose to rise above it. We are not defined by fear." The shadows twisted, recoiling in horror with each pulse of their affirmation. "You seek to transcend?" it scoffed, but less confidently. "Yes." The group roared as one, defiance erupting into clarity. Glimmers of their shared histories exploded in flashes, moments of joy, times of strength amid hardship, support that had been forged through laughter, tears, and shared dreams. They echoed in Jake's mind, no longer just figments of memory but embers of power ignited by their bonds. He felt that sacred connection, their truth illuminated. "Together we push through," he shouted louder, welcoming the surge of freedom and hopeful lights folding one over the other. The figure writhed momentarily, its form halting, uncertainty flashing like lightning across its twisted features. For too long, it thrived in the darkness of their silence. But silence was no longer. "Face what hunts you!" the figure screamed, darkness swirling, yet light danced in the air, their faces brimming with shared resilience, and burning light ignited from within. With hands clasped tight, they screamed, "We will not let our fears consume us." The shadows recoiled. They twisted and contorted, slipping through yonder like smoke evaporating under the sun, remnants of darkness ripping away, each flickering into oblivion. Hope cascaded through them, and as the collective steadfastness shimmered around them like a shield, a brilliance pierced through the charred fragments, and then it was done. The dark figure faltered, trembling, eyes wide in disbelief, as rays of light shone against the remnants of darkness. Jake blinked at the dawn breaking in the distance, dusk retreating from the horizon as the shadows stood powerless beyond the light's reach. "We faced you together. You are not welcome here," he yelled, conviction throbbing alive within each heartbeat. With one last screeching echo that felt like an unsettled drumbeat, the figure shattered, darkness dissolving back into emptiness, taking the burden of despair along with it. The air lightened, the grip of fear receding into whispers. Breathless, the group stared at each other, shaking but alive, hope dancing in their eyes as dawn broke, a golden hue spilling across the sky. They were more than shadows had suggested. They were survivors, not shaped by their fears, but bonded through every trial and tribulation. They turned from the clearing, intertwined as they made their way back, hearts high despite the chill, ready to face whatever came next. They were warriors now, changed yet resolute, their frayed edges transformed into brighter possibilities. "Never again," Jake whispered, feeling the warmth of friendship and renewal embracing him. They weren't just friends but a family forged through fire. And out of everything, the darkness was a reminder. Together, they could overcome anything. As they stepped into newfound light, realization dawned upon them that the shadows no longer had power. Together they'd step into a brighter future, leaving fear behind. Now, before we wrap up, I have to hit you with this urgent message. You need to subscribe now, so you don't miss a moment of the wild stories coming next. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and boost our community. If you're feeling the vibes, flood that comment section with your reactions and theories. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support means everything. Show it now.